Hold on one second.
Good evening. Can you guys do the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Incheck.
Here.
Commissioner Fettner.
Here.
Commissioner Henry.
Here.
Commissioner Mantis.
Here.
Commissioner Moore. Chair Nanis.
Here.
Chair Kirsch. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. The first item on our agenda for this evening is the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting from April 21st, 2026. Could I get a motion?
Before I take a motion, I did review the minutes and I watched the video from last week, so I'll be voting on it.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Just recognize that Student Rep Chloe Pilot's here. City Council Liaison Yumi Ross is here, as well as Corporation Counsel Marcus Martinez. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Any comments, edits? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is a continuation of public hearing number PUD-2025-00081 for a special use permit in the nature of a preliminary and final plan development with modifications from the city code and a plat of subdivision with variances from the city code at 147 Central. Staff?
Maddie's going to go first. She's just going to do a reiteration of the historic portions, and then I'll come in and talk about the variations and just your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. So for those of you that haven't met me before, I'm Maddie Markle. I'm a planner with the city, and I'm the staff liaison for the Historic Preservation Commission. And I'm just going to be reviewing the commission's findings and recommendation that they developed over the course of multiple meetings. This will be a quicker presentation than last time, since all of the commissioners here have had the opportunity to either attend in person or see the video. So the reason that the HPC has to give a written recommendation is because of this section of code, 150.530E2, Historic Preservation Commission Review. The Historic Preservation Commission, if in the determination of the director, the plan development might affect historically significant property, structures, area, objects, or landscapes, then they have to review the potential impact of the proposal on the historically significant properties, structures, areas, objects, and landscapes, and then submit a written report of their findings to the Plan and Design Commission, and eventually to the City Council. Another part of code that's important to consider tonight is section 150.520C. This is from the Plan and Design Commission's design standards. It says the plan development shall preserve all locally designated landmarks and properties, structures, areas, objects, and landscapes determined to be historically significant by the Historic Preservation Commission in accordance with Chapter 24 or 170 of code. So for reference, Chapter 24 is the city's historic preservation ordinance, and 170 is our demolition section of code. And in that section, the commission can review residential properties that are covered by that section of code before a demolition occurs. 147 Central Avenue is a local landmark. That is the reason why that earlier code section was triggered. And an important note is that even though 147 Central Avenue is a local landmark, it's not a national landmark. It's not listed on the National Register of Historic Places. I don't say this in any way to detract from the historic value of the property. It most certainly has historic value locally. However, during a very extensive review that was done by the state and the federal government, it was not found to ultimately be included in a national district. That does exist. The boundary comes right up next to 147 Central. It was nominated for the National Register in 1982. And in the first draft, it actually was included in the National Register nomination. So you'll see as part of the staff determination related to the landmark status, the National Register nomination is included. We still think that's important because it was written by former HPC Chair Susan Benjamin, who was chair in 1985 when the property was landmarked locally. So it still has relevance to the local landmark designation in that sense, in that it was completed by the same person. However, this is not a National Register property. In the final draft of the National Register District, it was not included. But a couple years later, in 1985, it was designated a local landmark, and it was found to meet landmark criteria 1, 3, 4, and 6. And we discussed in detail what those criteria mean at the last meeting. So to summarize, the entire property at 147 Central was designated a local landmark in 1985. Staff has reviewed the historic record to determine the scope of the 1985 designation. Individual buildings can be designated as local landmarks, but you can also designate entire properties as local landmarks. In order to determine what the HPC and City Council intended to do in 1985, it's staff's procedure to review the record. And through that lengthy review of the historic record, we have determined that the entire property was landmarked as a result of the 1985 ordinance. This was always the case. It is not our position that the landmark designation was extended. The HPC considered the subdivision and plan development at 4 prior meetings. They made a motion at the January 8th meeting. The item was continued at the February 12th meeting, at the March 12th meeting. The HPC requested further information about zoning for the plan development consideration, and they moved to continue the item until the April meeting. And on April 15th, they adopted their written recommendation, which is available in the agenda packet. And in that recommendation, they specified conditions of approval if the plan development was to be approved. But to reiterate, they still unanimously recommend denial of the plan development. At the January 8th meeting, they moved to find that the subdivision of the lot would significantly impact the historical significance of the property at 147 Central Avenue based on the historic fence, the columns that make up the gate, relocation of the new driveway and its impact on the curb appeal and the growing density of the lot. The HPC unanimously recommended denial. And the HPC has since adopted a written report that summarizes their findings and recommendations. So in that report, the HPC further elaborates that they unanimously recommend complete denial of the proposed plan development on the basis that the proposed plan will irreversibly alter the property's historic site setting. They further emphasize that open space on the property contributes to the estate setting of the Cornelius Field property, and it's an integral part of the historic resource. And allowing any construction on Lot 2 will create more density and detract from the property's historic significance. However, in a split vote, the HPC decided to add conditions of approval if the Plan and Design Commission did decide to approve the plan development. But again, the HPC does unanimously recommend denial, and a majority of the HPC recommends these conditions if it got approved. So the first condition being that the Plan and Design Commission require an 80-foot side yard setback on the west side of proposed Lot 2, that any new structure on the proposed Lot 2 not exceed the height of the Cornelius Fieldhouse, and that the Plan and Design Commission require the preservation of the gateposts that are in the right-of-way, the wrought iron fence that's continuous along the front yard, the heritage trees, and the use of the driveway in its existing location with no additional driveway as conditions of approval. And they also recommend prohibition of additional zoning relief related to Lot 2.
Can I make a comment on that slide?
Yeah.
Can you go back? I just wanted to comment real quick. So eventually Patrick Hoffman, Planner 2, will give his presentation. I just want to remind the commission, there's essentially 4 things you can do. You can recommend approval. You can recommend approval with conditions. You can recommend denial, or you can continue to request more information. And so when you get to your deliberation, if you'd like, I can certainly put this slide back up if the commission is at that time talking about conditions. If that's appropriate, of course, like I said, you have 4 options before you. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks, Carl. So this is an approximate diagram just to show that 80-foot side setback that the Historic Preservation Commission is in favor of. So in the top left corner, you'll see a little drawing that shows the relationship between the Cornelius Fieldhouse and the house at 175 Central Avenue. The HPC's logic for this 80-foot side setback was that this setback would mirror the spacing between the Cornelius Fieldhouse and the structure at 175 Central Avenue. And that's all that I have for the Historic Preservation Commission's written recommendation. I can answer questions, or if there's no questions, we can turn it over to Patrick to talk more.
Thank you, Maddie.
Go ahead. You have a question? Yeah, I do have a question.
Hold on one second. Sure. Councilwoman Ross, would you like to speak now or later?
Sure, there's more to the presentation, though.
Patrick has a short.
Yeah, Patrick Hoffman has a brief update on the zoning and subdivision changes.
I guess I might as well say it now, since you invited me to. I'll try to read quickly. Today, I double-checked with the city manager and Corporation Counsel Steve Elrod in particular, who says that what I'm about to state is appropriate and is fine to do right after the staff's presentation, which I just asked Steve moments ago. As city council liaison to the PDC, my role is to report to the council and represent the council to the PDC. And in light of an application that was made last year, where after vote, several members of PDC expressed the desire to have known more history at the time of their meeting, to the extent that it is relevant, it seems important to update PDC on what council discusses. So it is important to share that the city and city council itself greatly values historic properties. And as I said, I double checked with the city manager and corporation council about what I'm about to state. As city council liaison to the PDC, hold on one second. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you. The city council, so it feels important to share that the city and city council itself greatly values historic properties and certainly landmarked ones. As evidence of this high value placed on historic preservation, at the last city council committee of the whole meeting a week ago, the agenda included a presentation by staff on landmark incentives to make it more financially appealing to landmark, as well as disincentives to changing landmarks, including but not limited to demolition. A discussion followed the presentation, and now staff will be providing more information to council soon. I'm not sure when, but soon. This presentation on how to protect, the presentation last week on how to protect landmarks was well received by city council. And if corporation council doesn't mind my saying so, that was a comment he made to me. But I share that assessment. To be clear, I only repeat and report this because commissioners and anyone who tunes into our meetings might have missed this council discussion, reflecting the high value the city and council places on historic landmarks. According to the city manager, the issue of promoting and incentivizing historic preservation landed on last week's council agenda as part of the city's work plan. I didn't create or contribute to that agenda or its timing. Neither did my colleagues, to the best of my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henry.
Thank you, sir. Manny, let me ask you a question. If I'm the owner of this property and I decide I want to build on the area that's referred to as Lot 2, just, I want to build a house or something. What is the difference between that and if these lots are split into two legal lots of record, each of which would be covered by the historic preservation ordinance, and any building on that lot 2 would require a certificate of appropriateness anyway? I hope I made that clear.
It's the same from the historic preservation standpoint.
I can field that question. So to build a new house, if this were just to be one lot still, if they were to build another house.
If I own it and I say, I want my kids, why would I want that? But if I want my kids living on what's listed as Lot 2, or purportedly Lot 2.
Yeah, so that would be an additional dwelling unit. That would be considered 2 dwelling units on site. So this is a single family zoning district. That would not be allowed. However, I mean, people have pool houses, detached garages, other accessory structures on their lot. That is something that they could do in that area. So there are structures they could place on the lot or on that, in that area, but an additional dwelling unit would not be allowed.
Okay, Patrick, let me follow up if I may, Chair.
You may.
Is there an avenue for relief under the city ordinances for that? If, let's say, I wanted to build a second residence on what might be Lot 2, is there an avenue for relief that I can pursue before this commission or the zoning board or the city council, or I don't know who else is out there? Is there an avenue for relief to something like that if that's what I wanted to do?
Yeah, so since this is a single-family zoning district, the way that you would do that is you'd subdivide the lot in order to get that density.
Okay, so you'd have to there's
couldn't
no way to
vary.
do it without subdividing
No,
it
it's
into
not
2
true.
lots of record?
No, you can do a planned development and you can create building pads and have multiple units on one part.
Okay, so
But
there,
that
so
would
there
be a
is,
planned development. This is a planned development.
so there is an avenue for relief without necessarily subdividing that, this into 2 legal lots of record.
Yes, and it would be a situation where there would be common area, and then there would be, you know, maybe building pads, if you will, or the homes that currently exist would be on their own pad, so they could be sold off individually, and then you have your common area, and then you have your individual ownership.
And it still requires a certificate of appropriateness,
Yes,
if we subdivide it or not right now, frankly, or if.
correct.
Okay.
That's right. So there's two residents on the property now, and this would be a
Yeah,
third.
I mean,
Yep.
they'd have to go through this, you know, dog and pony show again, and I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion. Please don't misunderstand. But they'd have to go through a process similar to this at that time, if that were hypothetically to happen.
You mean to have
Yeah,
3
2 homes on a
dwellings on
single
one
lot.
lot? Three
Yeah.
dwellings, in this case, 3. There's 2 already existing, and then there'd be a third.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that by plan development
could
if
do
you
it.
wanted to.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thank you, both.
Anyone else have a question for Maddie?
Yeah, I think so. So we talked a little bit last time about the estate setting, and as you went through your presentation again today, the word that jumped out in terms of considerations was landscape, right? And it seems like landscape could be a portion of the property that gets a historical landmark to it, but in reading through the attachments that were provided in this week's package, I didn't see anything that talked about the property or the landscape or the estate-like setting or just the entire visual. So I'm wondering if there's anything in there that you can call to my attention, because I saw like there was reference to, well, it was the pin, and so because the pin was included, it's the entire property, but I don't know that that is compelling. So I'm just wondering if there's anything else in any of the text that was provided that gets to kind of the entire property.
Right. So the reason that we believe that the entire property is a landmark is because it's not just the PIN number. We have to consider who was on the HPC during this time and what they considered important about the property. So the HPC chair at the time, Susan Benjamin, she was chair both in 1982 and in 1985 and in 1986, which are important dates in this timeline in the historic record. So in 1982, the HPC chair nominates 147 Central to the National Register. The property name is the Cornelius Fieldhouse, but there is a nomination boundary that you have to include in order to nominate something to the National Register. She lists the nomination boundary as the entire lot. She names the lot specifically. There is the PIN number, and the acreage is also listed, the entire 3.8 acres. The nomination also mentions the 1875 coach house, the circa 1930 bridge, the potting shed, and greenhouse foundation. These are structures that expand beyond just the Cornelius Fieldhouse. These are other structures on the property. We don't mean to say that every square inch of this property has historic significance. But clearly, this former chair thought that more than just the main house has historic significance. In 1985, the owner nominates their property for a local landmark designation. They nominate the field property. The nomination form doesn't single out the house. It doesn't say Cornelius Field House. It also uses a PIN as a legal description. And in 1985, the HPC adopts a resolution recommending landmark designation. This does refer to the Cornelius Field House at 147 Central Avenue. It also includes the PIN, and it's signed by Susan Benjamin, who again wrote the 82 National Register nomination. In 1985, again during this time, there's a request for council action. This refers to the Cornelius Field House and calls out the building. So definitely some inconsistencies there. And the landmark designation ordinance refers to the Cornelius Field House. It refers to subject properties multiple times, not subject buildings or subject structures. Again, it has the PIN. And in 1986, there's a certificate of appropriateness review for the coach house. So the HPC chair, again, is the same person. The property owner is the same property owner who consented to the local designation in 85. And none of the parties involved objected to a review of an outbuilding on the property that is separate from the main Cornelius Field House. And in 2011, you see this pattern repeat itself where there's a COA for the gardener's / potter's cottage, some fencing in the backyard, exterior stairways. And this was issued to the current owner of the property. And again, there weren't any objections to HPC review that extended beyond the main house. Typically what we'd see if this landmark designation was only for the main house, you would see property owners taking issue with a review that extended to something that's clearly beyond the main house. And there definitely are inconsistencies in the RFCA, and as it's been noted, the landmark designation ordinance does say Cornelius Field House. However, that's a very common way of referring to historic properties, and we don't believe it indicates an intent to only designate that building within the broader context of what has happened surrounding this designation. Staff truly believes that the chair and the council did intend to landmark the property, and the use of the term Cornelius Field House is a colloquial way of referring to a historic property. That's a common way of referring to historic properties. And we would prefer to look at the intent of the people who were involved in the situation, since there are discrepancies, since the words that are used to refer to this property are not consistent throughout the record. So the intent of the people involved is very important. So you had a question about the historic estate setting. The historic estate setting, that doesn't come from the landmark ordinance per se, or this review of the record. That's the Historic Preservation Commission's finding. And they can have findings that aren't necessarily relating to specific wording that's in the landmark ordinance. Their job is to give you a non-binding recommendation, and this is the way that they've decided to do it. The historic estate setting in those terms is very important to them. Staff doesn't necessarily think, as I said before, that every single square inch of the parcel is important. But clearly, structures that were beyond the Cornelius Field house have been reviewed in the past, are referenced in documents in various ways. And so we do feel that that's important.
So can I ask a follow-up just to put a finer point on what you just touched on? So the estate setting then is an interpretation of what you just went through, right? It's the Historic Preservation Commission's interpretation of these data points, right, in their totality that they're kind of concluding.
It's also important to remember that concurrently with their review of the plan development, they were also discussing a landmark removal request for Lot 2, should Lot 2 come to be. And during that discussion, they did apply landmark criteria to Lot 2 that informed their decision to not recommend landmark removal for that lot. So the estate setting was also a very large part of that conversation. But the specific term estate setting, you're correct, that doesn't come from staff's review of the historic record. That comes from HPC discussion.
Got it. Thank you.
I had one question, and just bear with me because I wasn't here at the last meeting. I did watch the video, but I had some clarifications. If the subdivision is granted, that doesn't remove landmark status, does it, from Lot 1 or Lot 2?
No, it does not. Since the HPC used landmark criteria in code to determine that Lot 2, if on its own, would still meet multiple landmark criteria and retain integrity of design. If the subdivision were to go through, that lot would retain its local landmark status, and the applicant would be required to get a certificate of appropriateness from the commission. And the commission would review any new construction on the lot using 14 standards for new construction that are found in Chapter 24 of the Preservation Ordinance.
Great, thank you.
Chair, if I
Yes, go ahead.
Mandy, let me ask you a question. Does the property owner have to concur with the HPC's desire to landmark a property? So if I own this desk and the HPC comes to me and says, we want to
Oh, I see.
give that landmark status, and I own it, and I don't want it to have landmark status, what role do I have in that process?
No involuntary landmark.
Oh, it's not involuntary.
There's no provision in our code at this time for involuntary landmarking.
Okay, so then the property owner has to concur.
You do need property owner consent for a new landmark designation. In 1985, the property owner consented. So the city already has that consent from the property owner in 1985.
Has the property owner changed from 1985 to the present?
The property owner has changed, but once something is designated a local landmark, that status runs with the property,
I
not
understand
with the
that.
property owner.
Yeah, that part I
So that
understand.
status is in perpetuity.
Yeah, that I get. I just wanted to know if the property owner who at least concurred with the designation process at the time was still a property owner.
It's a different property owner.
Any other questions for Maddie? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Okay, hello. So I'll go through this pretty quickly, just as a refresher of why we're here. So staff recommends the commission continue the consideration for requests of final PUD, final plan development, and plat of re-subdivision with variation. At the January 6th, 2026 commission meeting, commission directed staff to draft findings of fact for recommending approval. Those have been provided and were provided at the previous meeting. This item was then said continued from the April 21st, 2026 commission meeting. The subject property again is 147 Central. Petitioner is Greg Moyer on behalf of the owner. And existing property is currently one buildable lot. And the request is to subdivide the property into two separate independent legal lots of record. An aerial of the property here. Dotted line is just an approximation of what the lot 2 will look like. We'll just go straight to it. Lot 1 highlighted here in blue, lot 2 highlighted here in red. Approximately same size, around 90,000 square feet. The applicant has proposed a slight change in the section here that is adjacent to the existing property. Here it is a 20-foot building line. Previously it was 12 feet. When it first came in, it was 20 feet. So there's been some kind of back and forth with what has been submitted and changed on this portion of the lot. But the applicant has gone forward with 20 feet here where it is adjacent to the existing home. And then it does this shift down to 12 feet when it's in the rear, not adjacent to the existing home. So that was the change from the previous meeting. Per section 150-545A1C, any increase more than 1% of the floor area or building square footage would require a PUD amendment. The applicant has not provided any information on said building that will be located on lot 2. So as it stands, without any conditions on that, this would have to come back for a PUD amendment for the construction of that single family home. But there are conditions to consider. HPC did provide some comments with their recommendation, or some recommendations with the recommendation, as Maddie has highlighted previously. So kind of what is the acceptable buildable area, floor area, the 80-foot setback from the west that HPC considered. These are recommendations from HPC. Those are things that you can consider. You do not have to adopt them, but you can consider them for your recommendation. HPC also recommended the preservation of the gate post, wrought iron fence, existing driveway configuration. The applicant has considered separating that driveway. So lot 1 has its own driveway. Lot 2 would be using kind of the existing driveway up to a certain point. HPC is not in favor of that. So that's another consideration for you to look at. Other just conditions is if the home were to be constructed following any conditions that you do place on it, would it still need to do a PUD amendment? If it just follows your recommendations and city council does adopt those recommendations, would it need to come back for a PUD amendment if said recommendations and conditions were followed? Oh, and also, this was noted already, but HPC would be doing a certificate of appropriateness on that single family home in the future. Again, they're offering a $2,500 donation as a public benefit. They're not asking for any section 150 variations, so no public benefit is required, but this is something the applicant is offering. And we did receive 7 public comments received after the packet posting. You should have all of those. We also have hard copies here if anyone in the public would need them.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
And those are the same ones I emailed out. Granted, they were only emailed sometime around 5 p.m., but just so you know, the hard copies you have are the same as the ones that were on the email.
And so, yeah, staff recommends commission consider the request for final plan development and plat of re-subdivision with variation and make a recommendation to city council. Commission may consider recommending approval with conditions, denial, or continue if more information is needed. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Planner Hoffman. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Hoffman?
I have a question about the findings of fact pertaining to historic resources specifically. The packet says that the plan development shall preserve all locally designated landmarks and property structures, areas, objects, and landscapes determined to be historically significant by the HPC in accordance with the code. And the finding there is that the commission finds the proposed plat of subdivision preserves the primary residential structure and outbuildings on the landmarked property. What Maddie just covered sounded like the property structures, areas, objects, and landscapes piece of that. It's kind of missing in the findings of fact that it's not negatively affecting the rest of the property.
So that is just a draft for you to go off of. Staff put forward a recommendation of approval. In order to have a recommendation of approval, you need to find that all of these standards are met. So they are drafted in the positive. If you do not believe it does not meet that standard, that is something that we can change and would change your recommendation. But that's kind of why it's written that way.
Okay.
Right, and if I may comment real quick also on the commissioner's question, I'm taking notes as you speak. So depending on the deliberation, depending on the motion, those findings that are in there, which are just draft right now, can be amended as appropriate, either on the floor tonight or it can come back to a later meeting, and we would have them amended as well.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
I've listened to Yumi Ross's comments, reporting back on the council, and let me follow that in what I think is a logical discussion. If I think I see where she and her colleagues on the council may be going, is there any current benefit to a property being designated as a landmark with landmark status under the city code? Is there an abatement of taxes? Do they get snow removal? Who knows? Is there any benefit that is associated with landmark status?
Financially, they can avail themselves to a state program for property tax freeze, not property tax, property assessment freeze, if they meet the requirements, which is a significant improvement needs to be made that qualifies for that. It's not just an automatic, you have to actually do work to the home. I don't have all the details on the program beyond that, but that would be one aspect that, this certainly would aid them in doing that, although you do not need to be a local landmark to benefit from that program. Otherwise, in terms of its benefit, I mean, for this, there are people who are interested in purchasing homes that are historic, and so this does add to that.
But is there any tangible, like, I'm going to give you a tax break because we know that property of this size is significant and Lake County taxes significantly?
Not at this time, but there are considerations. Committee of the Whole, we did do a presentation on various incentives and
Well, that's what I was reading into.
Right.
Councilperson Ross's.
We had a lengthy discussion on 2 occasions about that, and council did direct staff to look into such matters in more detail and report back with recommendations on how one might do that. The specifics of which were not defined at this time.
No, it's still in the discussion stage. I get that. Okay. Thank you.
So that would come back at a later date for formal consideration by council. At Committee of the Whole is only an informal consideration. So they're interested in knowing more and seeing what the options are and how that might be done.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chair, if I could add one other comment. Director Fontaine says that a property does not need to be a local landmark to be eligible for the state program. That is technically true, but just for further context, you do have to either be a local landmark or a national landmark. So this program isn't open to all homes in Highland Park. And the way that most people go through this program is that they do have a local landmark status because that opens the door for eligibility to the program.
Thank you.
So theoretically, if this commission approved and sent on to the council a recommendation that this application be approved in some way, shape, or form that would divide it into 2 legal lots of record, each legal lot would be eligible for that. Arguably, not necessarily they get it, but they'd be eligible for that program.
The Cornelius Fieldhouse might be eligible for the program based on what type of restoration was proposed. It does have to meet state standards. New construction on the Lot 2 most likely would not be eligible. I don't see the state approving that because they're interested in restoration of currently existing historic houses, not new construction on historic lots.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you, Mandy.
Yeah, the standards for new construction on landmark properties, it's really about making sure that that new construction is appropriate relative to the context and the setting, right? So it doesn't create a historic structure. And that's what Maddie's alluding to. The state would be focused on actual,
I'm just trying to figure out what the impact of, if we were to recommend that the single lot be divided into 2 legal lots of record, both of which have local landmark status, as I understand it. And Mr. Fettner asked that tonight, and I asked that last time we were here on that. I was just wondering how that might be impacted.
Beyond that, there are criteria that the state looks at, like Maddie's talking about.
Yep.
So that alone doesn't necessarily mean what's necessary to get that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Understood.
Strict criteria.
Ask a follow-up question
Go
to
ahead.
that. I'm curious if the new construction is regulated by the landmark status, then, does it have the same stringency in terms of site improvements moving forward as a historic property would have? Is it like, it comes back every time it needs a facade improvement, or they want to make any type of grounds modifications?
That's correct, but not every alteration to the exterior of local landmarks is sent to the Historic Preservation Commission. Basic maintenance and repairs wouldn't be sent back to the HPC, and typically the commission is more lenient with properties that are modern. So for example, we do have local historic districts. There's a few, we call them non-contributing properties in our local historic districts that are contemporary buildings, and the commission is much more lenient for those properties because they understand that they're not historic. They're not going to try to have them completely recreate some type of faux history that never existed, for instance.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other additional questions for the staff? Would the applicant like to come up and present? I believe you're already sworn in on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've already been sworn. Again, for the record, my name is Cal Bernstein. I'm the attorney for the applicant. I really didn't intend on doing a long presentation tonight. It was my impression that we were just going to talk about proposed findings of fact. I didn't realize we were going to hear another presentation from the staff liaison from the Historical Preservation Commission. But I do want to note 2 things that are important that I felt was omitted in her presentation tonight. Number 1 is the report that was issued by the Historical Preservation Commission was issued on a 4-3 vote. It was not unanimous, obviously. And she mentioned it was a majority, but it was a 4-3 vote with regard to the petition. And to respond to your question with regard to the estate setting and the historical structures that are on the property, I will note that in Maddie's original staff report to the Historical Preservation Commission back in January of this year, January 8th, she noted, as stated before, the proposed Lot B, which is the new lot, will consist of unimproved wooded area and will not include any of 147 Central Avenue's historical significant structures. So staff took the position back in January that the new proposed lot had no historical structures on it. Now, where this estate setting came in, there's nothing in the record back in 1985 when the property was landmarked that was even discussed or that was an issue. It's the current Historical Preservation Commission who noted that they felt that that was an important element based on the current situation, and that's their opinion. I will note is included, I'll go a little bit more detail later, but in the new letters that you received, there was the standard letters, oppositions, they're pretty much the same letter that you received a couple of times over. You've seen that in the past. I've drafted those in the past too. So you see, you see those. But there was a letter there from Danny Kahn, and I hope you had an opportunity to read it. Danny Kahn is a former chairman of the Historical Preservation Commission. So now we have a former chairman sitting here, Jim Fairman, who's going to be the architect if the new home is approved. And now we have a letter from Danny Kahn, unsolicited. I had never talked to Danny. No one on our team talked to him. He sent a letter in support of the subdivision. And so so again, the historical preservation community is not all against the proposed subdivision. Danny points out several good reasons why this subdivision should be approved and obviously be monitored through what's called the certificate of appropriateness process that's going forward. And to address your question, Commissioner Henry, with regard to other things, I brought this up at the last meeting. This is such a large piece of property. Again, that's the reason why we're here dealing with the Historical Preservation Commission, because to redevelop this property, you have to do it as a plan unit development because it's over 3 acres in size. If it was smaller, we wouldn't have this issue. We would not have a report from the Historical Preservation Commission. But based on the size of the property and the amount of table land that's available, when we originally looked at this several months ago, we considered coming with a 3-lot subdivision because there's enough property in there to build 3 houses and still satisfy the minimum requirements in the lakefront overlay zone of 40,000 square foot lots, 1 acre zoning. We decided basically to make the request only 1 additional lot. We took it upon ourselves to downzone this property because once this property is subdivided into 2 lots, you can only have 2 principal structures on those 2 properties. You can't come in and seek to subdivide one of those lots into a 3rd lot. If you just did it as a PUD and pads, another developer could come back with pads and multiple pads on this property because this property could support that. So we thought this was the most, as Danny Kahn mentioned in his letter, the most reasonable request that could be made for such a large piece of property. I will also note that since I appeared in front of you a couple weeks ago, and as I'm sure you all are aware, tax bills came out. And the real estate tax bill on this property increased by over $6,000. So this property now has an $81,000 tax bill to it. And again, this is something that Danny Kahn mentioned in his letter, is that in order to preserve the historical structures, which was noted by staff to only be on Lot A, which is the current lot where the current house is, in order, with Danny's position, and we concur with it, that in order to make the price of that property attainable for someone to do it, and come in and actually love that house and make the improvements that are necessary to make that, continue to have that house be relevant, you have to make it easier for someone, not just the purchase price, because as Danny mentioned in his letter, the purchase price that's being requested is not an unreasonable request. It's not like they're asking for the moon here. It's the fact that the carrying cost of this property, as I've noted over and over again, it's between an $81,000 tax bill, the landscaping, the upkeep, everything needs to be done. It makes it prohibitive for someone to try to own this property as a unified piece of property. We talked about Jim, who's very familiar, again, former chairman of the HPC, who's going to be designing the home. He's going to be working the process with the HPC, assuming this is approved, to achieve and hopefully obtain a certificate of appropriateness. Contrary to some of those form letters you received, there is no request to demolish any historical structures on this property. I don't know where they got that from. Again, part of this process is to try to preserve it and find someone who's going to actually love this property. There was other comments regarding setting precedents. Well, we've been down this road before in the past meetings. There's no other piece of property in Highland Park like this. It's so large that is landmarked like this, except for one, which is not going to be subdivided. The new lot would be the two new lots would be twice the size of any other lot that's on this block. So they are going to be extremely large lots, and it's not going to alter the character of that neighborhood anyway by creating two large lots on this property. The only variation we're requesting is that these lots will have more than 4 sides. You've heard that request in the past, because again, this is not just a rectangular lot that's easy to be subdivided. It's a very complicated piece of property with a lot of ravine property that's involved here also. As I mentioned, Danny Kahn is in support, and that his focus is the survival of the house and some of the contextual landscaping, and he believed that the request that we are making tonight would succeed in those goals. He feels that this would be, again, I'm paraphrasing his letter, this would be a reasonable compromise and allow the existing landmark home to attract a buyer at a reasonable price level that would hopefully then at that point invest and preserve that home. We could talk about, if you want to talk about the proposed conditions, I think we talked about it the last time. You know, we were in agreement of all of them except for the driveway, which we talked about, if you recall, because of the inherent issues with having a shared driveway and trying to avoid those issues. And let's see if there's anything else here. That's pretty much it. In summary, what we're proposing tonight is what we believe is inconsistent with the Lakefront District Neighborhood Strategic Plan, which is a part of the master plan, creating 2 large lots in the Lakefront Overlay Zone. So what we're requesting tonight is that you consider the findings of fact. If you want any of our input, we're prepared. If you want to talk about possible conditions, we're prepared to talk about that. We're seeking for you to approve, hopefully, these proposed findings of fact so we can move on to the city council and they can consider it. I do want to mention aside, I was going to try to avoid talking about this tonight, but it was mentioned by board member Henry talking about, possible benefits. Those are policy issues. That's really not before you tonight. That's what the council is wrestling with. But as someone who's watched these discussions over the years, one of the things they've talked about is trying to provide some property tax relief if you landmark your homes. And the issue you have with that is, 2/3 of your tax bill goes to the school districts, and I don't want to speak for them, but it's my understanding is that their consistent position is they're going to opt out of any type of tax benefit that they would receive for landmark because they want to maximize the revenue for the school district. So until the school district buys in, does that type of policy, it's going to be difficult to provide that type of benefit. But that's a conversation that the council is going to have. That's really not before you tonight. So we're available for any questions you may have.
Another question, Cal. Explain to me why you can't keep the existing driveway. I saw that in the video last week that's a condition that you guys really can't agree to. Explain to me why the shared driveway like that wouldn't work for both properties.
Thank you, Member Fentner. As we noted in the last time we were here, is that having a shared driveway, especially a long shared driveway, has a lot of complications. You have maintenance, you have usage, you have cars parked on there.
How wide is that driveway right now? Do you know?
It's an older driveway. As was mentioned last time, we believe that driveway serviced the house. Actually, I'm butchering it, so I apologize. The porte cochere, is that correct? The porte cochere is on the west side of the property. We're trying to match up the driveway with the porte cochere. By having such a long driveway looping in there, you have parking issues, you have shared usage issues, you have maintenance issues. There's a lot of issues that come with having a shared driveway, which you avoid if you each have your own driveway. And that's what we're trying to avoid there.
And did I hear correctly that the plan was to modify the existing driveway a little bit for the field house?
So the plan is to, the lot one, which is the existing house, is to create a driveway that kind of matches up where the porte cochere is on the west side. So it goes a straight line, so it's less impervious surface on that respect. And it doesn't have that long swooping ride into the property that go to the west side of the property.
So completely, okay, I see, because it goes on to both.
Yes.
I see. So that would be, that's one of the conditions that the HPC really wanted to see stay, right, was that driveway?
That's
But
one of
now-
the things that they mentioned at the HPC with the wrought iron gate. I can have the list here if you want.
Right, it's the
The gate
fence and the
post.
gate post.
Yeah, we were
and-
fine with that.
right.
The side yard setback we talked about. The height is a little more difficult, as you know, height's measured by, and this
Yeah,
lot
yeah, the height I
slopes.
understand.
And the no heritage trees, we would agree not to remove any heritage trees. We're not going to seek any zoning relief. So really, the only concern we have was with having that one driveway. And by separating it, as you know, it's kind of been that's one of the things why you don't have, because right now when you have estates that have been split up and you have multiple houses using one driveway, it creates complications, and we're trying to avoid that. It's just, it makes the houses more usable by having each having their own driveway.
You mentioned the setback too, and I saw that there was a recommendation for an 80-foot setback and you're at a 20-foot side yard setback. Is there a reason why you need the 20-foot as opposed to something a little bit 30 or 40 or 50? Is there like a steep slope issue there, or is there?
Well, there is a steep slope, and the lot kind of, what we did is that in trying to preserve the existing streetscape, we lined up the building line with the existing home. It's far in excess of the minimum required. It's my understanding it's far in excess of the established front yard setback on that also. So what we were focusing is lining up the two houses. We felt that, I believe it's 30 feet from the lot line to the existing home, and then it's another 20 feet. So we felt that 50 feet was sufficient to provide breathing room between the two homes. When the minimum in the zoning district is 12 feet, that's why we kind of try to make it a little larger. What we're trying to do is, if you can see, we have steep slope issues on the east side of the property.
That's what I was trying to figure out off of the
And since the house has not been designed yet, we're trying to provide some flexibility with the footprint of the home. But we feel that it's sufficiently far enough. We thought that 80 feet was not a serious, one member wanted 100 feet, which basically make the lot unbuildable. It was just, it was a thinly veiled attempt to try to make it so this property couldn't be developed.
Do you know, based off the steep slope, really where your setback would start from the east side there?
Yeah, it's on the plat. We created if you could zoom in, Carl, we created like a building line along the steep slope, 12 feet. So
So that's where the building line would start?
yes.
Yeah.
So we're setting it, so obviously we don't want to deal with, we want to provide, we want to be as far away from the bluff as possible because we want to preserve it. It's a ravine right there, and it's a pretty far drop. It's a property slopes from west to east. So we're trying to make it so that we could stay as far away from that ravine as possible. And still have a house that obviously on 80,000, on almost a 90,000 square foot lot that matches the lot.
I have a quick question for staff. If approved and they have to go back to HPC for, consideration for the type of house and all the building modifications, do they also take into account where the footprint of the house would be, or that has nothing to do with it?
On the HPC.
Or is it just on the aesthetic?
You basically want to get the question is the jurisdiction of the HPC with regard to.
I know they'll have input on the aesthetic, but will they also have input on where the footprint of the house will be
And
placed on the lot?
Just to note that the HPC isn't considering modifications. It's considering a new home developed in accordance with their standards. This body considers modifications from zoning. I just want to.
When I say modifications, I mean improvement, the house.
Okay, okay, I just want to be.
Just Commissioner Fettner was just asking about what standards the HPC would consider if or when a new home would come to be built on the proposed lot too.
Including the location.
Location, yeah, footprint.
The only standard that the HPC deals with that could be construed to deal with location is spacing of structures on the street. So there is one criteria that says that the commission should aim to have all new construction have a consistent rhythm with the visually related structures that are historically significant. So that could be interpreted to mean that there would need to be some sort of appropriate spacing between new construction and the Cornelius Fieldhouse. However, the commission typically doesn't, they don't discuss setbacks. They really haven't discussed building footprint before in great detail. Their standards largely have to do with design review, more with architectural details.
I would also know, maybe Maddie would know this more than I, but I don't know if the last house in Highland Park built new construction based on a certificate of appropriateness. Maybe you know it. I'm unaware of any.
Yes, I do. It's 2012 Grange Avenue, which was a new house that was added on to the Sparkling Springs Well House. So that was an entirely new house. The HPC reviewed it and it did get a COA. And from what I understand, I didn't work with the city during this time, but what I've heard from others and from the record is that the HPC was mainly dealing with architectural details and not the placement of the structure.
And it's my recollection, because I watched a couple of those meetings, it's my recollection that there was a structure on the property and they were trying to comport, Carl remembers this, they were trying to comport the new house with the structure and how the driveway and how the garage was going to be. So they were trying, so it wasn't so much about the property in this situation as how the new house was going to interact with the existing historical structure that was on the property that was going to remain. And I think that's what that was a lot of the interaction and the dialogue with regards to that, but it wasn't a blank slate. There wasn't just a vacant piece of property that was being dealt with. Yeah.
I just remind this commission that you are the zoning jurisdiction here, that the HPC isn't a zoning authority, and that part of a plan development is about where things are located. It's a site plan. You consider site plans all the time. The site plan doesn't indicate where the building's going to be located. It could, but it doesn't. So it's up to the commission as whether or not that's information you need to know to render a decision and make a recommendation to council. You can talk about setbacks and other things and the location of buildings and driveways and things like that as part of your plan development review. We do it all the time.
And I would note, as Corporation Council noted at the last meeting, that if a structure is going to be built on this property, we would have to return to the PDC to receive an amendment under the PUD in order to address those issues that you're bringing up right now. Again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Marcus, but I think that was what you said at the last meeting.
Right.
That's what we both said.
Yeah, essentially, we have a plan development. If you want to make specific changes that are set forth in the code that count as substantial changes, that would require the process that you've seen before, an amendment to the plan development, recommendation to council from yourselves, and then approval by council.
Right now, what's before you is a vacant lot.
Yeah, I'm just curious, in the current PUD that shows the setback lines, is that what is currently proposed for the PUD? So if that's approved by city council ultimately, if they do come back to amend the PUD with the structure, that's the starting point for negotiation for them, right? We don't get another crack at what those setbacks are because we've already approved it within the PUD that's in our packet. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that those setback lines are for the subdivision, the plat of subdivision, and those are on for the PUD is a separate application. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is. Those are two separate applications that are here before you tonight together. But that would be a line that could not be, that would be a building line, correct, Carl?
Yeah, the building lines.
If it's shown on the subdivision, then that's what that would be. You do have still zoning authority there, but again, you know, I don't want to get into semantics on whether or not the council approved this being at this location or not, because those lines are there. So you need to be very clear about what your intent is and your recommendation to council with regard to that. So
Now,
that
as
you
mentioned-
wouldn't run into that problem when they came back, if this were to be approved, and then they needed to do a substantial amendment because they now wanted to build a house, so that you wouldn't hear, well, the council approved this line, so therefore I could go to that line. So you need to be very clear
Right.
about that.
I mean, we discussed with staff before this meeting, after Corporation Council mentioned at the last meeting about, and this was brought up in one of the slides, about possible conditions to try to avoid coming back for a amendment to the plan unit development. That's something we've discussed as a team. So what we suggested, you know, it's a large footprint, there's a large buildable area, actually building envelope on this. And it's something that we talked as a team that we would commit to, is that the building envelope, not the building envelope, the building footprint would not exceed 9,600 square feet. You could build a house over 15,000 square feet on this property. It's a 2-acre piece of property. But it's something that we kind of talked about as a group. There's nothing formal about that, but it's something we could have a conversation with the PDC, or if you want to discuss it now, or you just want to wait, and if this is approved, to come back on an amendment to the underlying PDD, on the PUD. It's something we kind of talked about. And I didn't talk to Director Fontaine, I talked to other staff about that.
So I do think it's important for the commission to understand what can be the developability of that parcel, and understanding the relative size to the existing structures out there. So staff have some information on that. If that's where the plan commission chooses to have its line of discussion and questioning, we're happy to talk about that. Because the applicant mentioned 9,600 square feet. If that's a footprint, or is that the total area of the home? That's two different things. You know, you have 2-story homes, right? So 96 times 2, yeah, right.
But we couldn't do that anyways, because.
I understand, but it's still, that's the distinction that we need to make, those types of things. And so the limitation on this lot, we can talk about. I thought it was 15 and change, but, you know, I would have to defer to staff.
It's only
on that.
15,
Yeah.
but that's how big of a house you could build. No one's gonna build a 15,000 square foot house, but that's based on the current FAR, that's what you could build.
Chair, if I may. So let me understand something. I may have a question for you too, Cal. The Historic Preservation Commission has recommended that if we approve this, that we have 80-foot setbacks. The applicant has said, essentially what I'm hearing is 80-foot setbacks is not workable. Maybe yes, maybe no. Number one, what does that zoning district require for setbacks? And number two, regardless of what the specific ordinance states, what is the applicant willing to accept, or what would they propose as being a setback somewhere between, let's say, a 20 or 30-foot setback and an 80-foot setback, which is what the commission has recommended? And to Commissioner Inchuk's question, do we get another crack at this apple, or another bite of this apple, if we don't make even a recommendation on that?
Okay, can I answer that question?
It's open.
Okay, I can answer, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding, based on the zoning district, the minimum side yard setback is 12 feet. And so what we suggested, when we believe, you know, the 80, again, they were throwing crazy numbers at the HPC. That one guy put out 100 feet. It was, as I said, I mean, I don't want to put, I have my own feelings of what they were trying to do there. And I'm not impugning their I don't want to say it. I'm not gonna do it. What I'm just saying is that we thought about it, and what we felt was a fair amount that would provide flexibility to where to put the footprint of the new home, to try to be sensitive to the steep slope area to the east, and that providing enough breathing room between this house and the other one in order to support, as what Danny Kahn mentions, to preserve some of the contextual landscaping. We thought that 50 feet between the two homes was sufficient, and that's why we came up with the 20 feet. We didn't think that over 100 feet, that what they were requesting, I think is it 20 or 30 feet to the house? 20? Okay, so yes, 40 feet between the homes. I misspoke. 40 feet between the two homes. We thought that 100 feet was just in excess. And so we thought that, and by the way, we got the input from the former chairman of the HPC in coming up with that number. I didn't come up with that number. We did it in consultation with the architect of where he thought, and this is what was recommended by, again, one of the former chairmans of the HPC.
So Mike, just to follow it up before you jump in, Joel. If we don't address that, and the new buyer of Lot 2, whoever might buy Lot 2, comes and says, I want to build a house, will they have to come to this group on that topic?
I mean, if they're not proposing any development and you choose to say, okay, this is just an open lot, just make clear in your recommendation. But yeah, I mean, if they're proposing a house, then that's a change in the PUD, because the PUD right now doesn't have a house on it.
Right,
So then
doesn't have
that's
a
a
house.
trigger of a
And-
substantial amendment as
And a house
Corporation
is
Council
not
indicated.
before us, as I see it.
That's right, that's not being, there's an idea that a house could go there, that's certainly an intent, but it's not actually on the site plan to be judged in that detail. So I would just advocate that the commission be very clear about that, and what the expectation is upon that materializing, and that would be a substantial amendment, because it's not being shown here, so it triggers one of the substantial amendment triggers in our code. Because it would be, what is it, 1% more floor area, is that what it is?
That's
But,
right.
Yeah, so it's certainly 1% more than was out there, right? And so yeah, so there's that trigger, if you will. So yes, that could be an approach. Carl, could we go back to that picture? Because I just want to, there is a question that folks kind of want to understand, and this is useful. Oh, right there. So Patrick, I believe, was pulling this up to illustrate the buildable area. Okay, we don't have a box on a page right now. We don't know how big it is, but that's the buildable area. And you can see the homes on the left there. Those are actual footprints on the left, on the yellow part. Yep. And yep. So, okay, so it's a large developable area. It does have limitations, as Attorney Bernstein was saying, about 15,000 square feet, and I would verify with staff on the exact, floor area, and your FIR ability there. How a house materializes is important. You have a big footprint single story, or you have, a smaller footprint 2-story. These things make a difference in terms of that open space setting, the setting of the property. And so I think the commission, meaning the Historic Preservation Commission, was looking at, well, how do you provide, how do you try to preserve the estate-like feel around the existing homes? And so that's why this setback is important. So kind of making it like another front yard, although it's a side yard, right? And it's then still has this openness, but there is another home, and that's why that home should be set back more. So now what 80 feet means on this plan, I mean, we don't have the benefit of where the box is, but we could certainly talk about how some distances, if we have some measurements there. But, without the benefit of seeing this on the page, it's a little hard to abstractly do that. But we could certainly, I think we have some dimensions of the width there at some point. I would defer to Patrick Hoffman on that. He did review this, and perhaps we do and maybe we don't. Just again, trying to give a little more context when we don't have the context that we normally have in terms of where things are going to be on a development plan.
So if so inclined, we would be allowed to approve the subdivision, but without showing designated setbacks? So there, it would just be subdivided as a vacant lot?
Well, it would still, the subdivision of the land is just that, right? It's the subdivision of the land. And if you're choosing to put a building setback line, there was the idea about the front yard setback, that's very important, and the side yard setback are both important. I mean, so I don't know that, you don't want to necessarily have anything there. I do think that they are separate considerations. You can subdivide the land and still have the PUD needed, but.
And I will note that we included in our plan a significant front yard setback with the building line equal to the existing home. So
Right.
that is more than the minimum required in the zoning district.
And which is
Significantly more.
desirable. I mean,
We didn't want the new house to overpower the existing landmarked home, so that's why we kind of lined it up directly, similar to other houses on the street.
so here you see it 80 foot from the property line that's being proposed, right? Is that the property line?
This is what this is the historic, are you talking about this 80-foot direction?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that from the building or is it from the property line?
This is the Historic Preservation Commission. If this were to be recommended for approval, the Historic Preservation Commission recommended an 80-foot setback from the proposed property line down the
From the
middle.
property line, not from the other,
from the
not
property
from the
line.
other residents.
Correct. So then that would create, this type of 122 feet or 100 feet, 102 feet or what is it?
About 105 feet. So
105 feet, okay.
Oh, go ahead.
So that creates that open space there, and then the rest of the property to the right there's a portion of it that would be developable, and we talked about how we have the steep slope zone and stuff like that as well, but if you look at the buildable area exhibit, you can see that a good portion of that land could be developed, and we just don't have an idea, though, of what the box is, because we don't have a box on the page.
I would note that, that would be creating about a 50-foot wide house, so it would be a long house, and that actually would be more detrimental to the estate setting than having two wider houses on the property, because again, it would, something like that would just be out of place on this property.
When you do create a large setback like that, the orientation of the home could become, something, is the home facing into that side yard, or is it facing, quote, the street, if you will, even though it's really not?
And then
seen.
one of the important elements that the HBC considered would be the driveway, and then you would have to materially alter the drive that they were concerned about.
You'd have to add additional driveway to get to the home. That's
Or we can kick the can down the road. That can.
I have a question though, because if you
Thank you, Cal.
Yeah, my name is Jim Fairman, and I'm looking at the architecture of Lot 2. So I just want to clarify this whole, the city zoning rules have been applied to this lot. There's protected land here, and there's regulated land here. And as Cal said, I just want to restate it, the front yard is substantially in excess of what the established front yard would be. And I don't think would be anyone's intention to have the house be in front of the other house. And this is kind of water under the bridge, because this is what's been shown. But this is about around 35 feet further back than it would have been. So that setback alone preserves this entire front yard of this property. And nobody's questioning that. And so this is a very substantial amount of land. And to me, that's the key thing as you look up and down Central Avenue, to still be able to see very clearly the Cornelius Field house. And so that's never been in question. The other setbacks are by regulation. There's a 10-foot, well, I'll clarify the side yard first. The minimum side yard is 12 feet. This lot is so large, the other side yard's 65 feet. But I think basically all of it, except maybe a little tiny amount, is in the ravine. And the ravine, as we know, is preserved. And no one's going to touch the ravine. And there's a 10-foot setback from the top of the ravine, which is by regulation. These regulations already exist. And then the rear yard was calculated at the proper rear yard of the site. And so then the modification was the 12-foot, the 12-foot line, the side yard line, and to me, the 80 feet thing makes no sense whatsoever. It has nothing to do, nothing in the back of this property really affects the historic home. And so to set back in that direction, it just doesn't make any sense and does preclude being able to build a logical home on that property. And it would be turned sideways and it would be forced into the ravine, and therefore, we would want to preserve that ravine area. And that's a fundamental thing in Highland Park, to preserve our ravine, since hopefully most of the house is going to stay away from it. So we did a calculation today that in this footprint, this footprint of this property, 70% of the property is regulated with this line. Only 30% is the building box. And that building box, and so this is a lot of regulation on this property. And that excludes the ravine to the north, which is included. This particular slide isn't right because the proposed lot 1 doglegs around the other lot. So the statistics I just told you about the 70% doesn't include the ravine, which is basically directly behind lot 2, which is more preserved, obviously preserved area of this whole property. So there's a tremendous amount of preservation of land by the zoning rules as they exist, with certain modifications, with a much bigger front yard setback and a change in the side yard setback. So I just wanted to kind of clarify, how these things evolved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can you go back to that buildable area slide, Carl? Okay.
So, but this, just to be clear though.
I just want to explain this. So this is not wrong. It's an illustration if the lots were split straight line, okay?
Right,
One,
yeah.
two.
But the numbers I was using pertained only to lot 2 as it was proposed.
We were just asked to do this by the city. What would I think it was originally asked by the PDC. What would it be if we just did the line straight? That's what this is. This was just for illustrative purposes. This is not what we're proposing, obviously.
Except for.
So what this area here is showing with minimum setbacks. I'll defer to staff, but this is with minimum setbacks, right? On this line here.
Right, that doesn't show
the buildable area.
The leg that they currently propose, but
Okay,
otherwise it
so
shows.
notwithstanding what was said, there's lots of area here that you can't build on. We know that is absolutely true, and it's all here.
Right.
That you can't. It's all the lighter green. That's right. And the front yard, we're saying, yep, they're basically lining it up with the existing historic home there, which is further setback than what would be if it was the established building setback that's stipulated. So all of this is that ravine area and all of that back here and all the protected area over here. So the question is how big a house can go in this dark green area. Just to clarify, with all that other stuff stipulated, that green area can be built.
It seems to me, to your point, Joel, we weren't talking about the front yard setback. We weren't talking about the east side setback because that's where the ravines were, and God only knows I dealt with that plenty. Or the north side, which is also where ravines are, and that's part of lot 1, proposed lot 1 anyway. What we were talking about specifically was the side yard setback, period, end of story, and what would be appropriate for this commission to recommend to the council, if anything. Or just say we want to leave it open and let them come back and have this discussion again, which seems to be an incredible waste of time.
I have a follow-up question about the subdivision into 2 lots. Lot 2, if it's subdivided, will have R4 zoning, right?
That's right, that's correct.
And so the side yard setback, if we don't dictate anything, the side yard setback for R4 would be 15 feet. Is that right?
The minimum of 12 feet.
Minimum of 12.
Yeah.
So if we don't dictate anything by right for their zoning, after the lot is subdivided, they have a right to build up to that 12-foot side setback.
Except that they have proposed
That's not what we're
20
proposing.
foot.
We're proposing
20
20
foot.
foot.
And
Yeah.
then go
So
back
if we,
to 12.
but I'm just saying, if we do nothing as a commission, it's 12 feet.
No, well, no, because we're proposing 20 feet.
It would be this,
Okay.
20 feet.
Yes.
And then it would jog back to 12 past the home. Because they're proposing that. You're right, if they were not proposing
Okay.
this line, but they are proposing this line.
Okay, thank you.
And let me ask you.
Do you mind if I put one?
HPC was recommending 80 feet from the property line all across proposed lot 2.
Correct. That was the recommendation. Where one member wanted 100 feet.
But that's not what the proposal is,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's not part of my
Yeah.
thought process.
I do want to add one clarification. While the steep slope zone is regulated, you can't place structures within it. You do get the benefit of the land area, which then benefits the floor area. So while, yes, that area you cannot construct in, you are getting the benefit of having a bigger house because that is more land area. So I just wanted to provide that context as well.
In regards to the side setback between the property of Lot 1 and Lot 2, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought Planner Hoffman mentioned that your original plan had a 20-foot setback, then you altered it to 12, and then you came back now to a 20 to 12.
The original plan was an error, actually, and the surveyor got it wrong, and we didn't realize it until the day of our hearing. And then we indicated that we were going to come back with a revised plat. That was our mistake.
And why didn't you just keep the 20 all the way down in the revised?
Well, the reason why we came back with 20 is we listened to the HPC, we wanted to create some more additional space. And as you go towards the rear of the property, what the concern at the HPC was where the house is located. And so we thought that once you pass the house, that you can go back to the minimum because there's no structures back there. So that's the reason why we did it that way, because it doesn't impact the house as you move forward, further north. Because the house doesn't exist back there, the structures.
But it might.
So, what?
But it might.
That's why we put the setback there. That's why we went down to 12 once you pass the house.
Oh, you mean the field house?
Yes, that's what we're talking about. So we wanted the flexibility as you pass the house, what you get into the zoning district, and just making an accommodation of the field house by creating a little more breathing room between the houses.
Any additional questions? No, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to ask through you to staff, what is the footprint of the existing home? Right now, on site there, that one. Okay, so the footprint of that home is provided by staff. This is sourced from, I believe, the assessor's portal online through our GIS system. Is that correct? It doesn't state, so I just threw you to.
You give a
Yep.
thumbs up on that.
Okay, so this is what the Cornelius Field home or house is. Just for reference, you see that box on the page. We don't have any other, right? But that particular box is there. So that's what that is. And if you can switch back, so you've got the Cornelius Field house is 4,500, and then that coach house is 1,100. So if you can flick back to the other to just look at that, Carl, yeah. So you can see here, what that looks like. I think that's best, or one of those options there. So you can see the size of that home is 4,500.
Yeah, it's hard to see. It's the rectangle here at the
I'm
corner
talking
is
about the
the,
Cornelius Field house, not
oh,
the-
yeah,
That's the one we.
the home, and then just the other two structures listed. I also just want to clarify that that is the footprint, that is not the FAR.
Right. So the applicant talked about a 9,600 square foot home, so the footprint is 4,500 of the home. Go back to that previous slide with the purple, that look, no, The house.
About 6,000 square. feet.
Trying to look at the house that is the
Yeah,
Cornelius
It's about
house.
6,000 square feet total of footprint on the existing lot one. I did the math. You had 4,500 with 1,100 with 600.
Carl, was there another
6,000.
picture, another,
So over 6,000. At least that's how I added up.
What's a zero?
Exactly. Oh, 60,000? Okay.
I thought there was another view of that, Carl. No, not that one, but on the map, down further. That, correct. Okay, so you see there the existing home in the purple, right? Okay, so staff could talk about the coloration here. What are we depicting in this particular slide?
Well, the existing home and the existing shed house here it's a purple type color, and then the dark green is the approximate buildable area as was proposed several meetings ago.
Right, and so the existing home, historic home, that purple looks like it does not coincide with the full extent of that. Is that because of porches and other?
Yeah, that's
elements?
right. That's
Okay.
right. This is a carport here, and then you have
Just
a
wanted to make that
porch.
clear to the commission.
There's a porch around the front, and then
Right.
a porch off the back.
Off the back. So the home itself, that purple area then is, am I right to say that that's the 4,500
Right.
square foot footprint?
Patrick, what is this footprint? Is it just the home, the
No,
garage?
it counts the carport and the porches as well.
Okay, that's important. So if you flick back to that then. Okay, so then that purple area isn't the entire extent of what the 4,500 is. It would be the white areas that Carl will point to that are the porches, et cetera, so forth.
So
Okay?
right now, from the porch to the proposed lot line is 20 feet. And the applicant is proposing 20 feet on its side of that lot line as well.
The point I'm trying to illustrate is
Yep.
if that whole area, including the white porch areas and the carport, if you zoom a little bit out, Carl, you can then see what a 4,500 square foot footprint would mean on the lot next door.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? So it would be really helpful if we had something like that on here to listen to talk about, but just put that out there. And they mentioned a 9,600 square foot home.
So
It's
a home's
important-
twice that size,
Well,
arguably.
but
Not necessarily the footprint.
But that's
Understood.
the footprint, is that
Yeah.
correct? That is not that's not the total area of that building, through you to staff.
The 4,500.
No, it's no excessive footprint of the Cornelius house.
And what is the total area of that home then? Is that 2 stories, right?
It is 2 stories. According to Lake County, it was comparable to, it was almost 5,000. But you don't count the carport, the porch area towards the floor area of
So
that. So
what's the footprint?
The footprint's the
Is the
4,500.
footprint 4,500?
That's
Okay.
what,
That's
that's correct. And that does
That's what I
include the
thought.
porches and the
Yeah.
carport, correct? Okay. But when you look at the gross floor area of a home, it's not going to include some of those things. The assessor does not include certain things in those reasons. Okay, so something like that, and if you zoom in a little bit, Carl, you can see the outlines of the porch areas and the carport. That's, 4,500 square feet, so you double that and you've got a 9,000 square foot home.
And I would mention is the house, as you can see, there's a significant porch on the east side. So from the house to, it's going to be more than the 40 feet to the house because you have that porch there.
And then another important point here is to illustrate that you have 108 feet from that setback line, which is 20 feet, to the top there, I presume, of the buildable area. Yep, roughly on that front yard, it's about 108 feet. So if you subtracted 60 feet from the 108 feet, you can see that that's getting a little tight, right? In terms of what the orientation of that new home would be, a large home. It's just, these are the things, talks about site planning, these things. So that's important.
But 30 feet might not be unreasonable. Or 20 feet maybe is not unreasonable. I don't know.
And the 20 feet came from Jim, for the architect.
Understood.
Yeah.
I just have a clarifying question for the applicant. Is the potential footprint of the new house 9,000 square feet? Or
Yes.
is it, okay.
The footprint.
So if we're looking at the existing field house, it would be double, essentially double what the footprint is, not the total.
Yes, can you go?
No, because
back to
there's other
that?
structures on the property also.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
Thanks.
but compared to the Cornelius Fieldhouse.
It's twice the size of the field house.
Yeah, I think it's how you should. I think it's important to keep in mind the other structures on the property because they are also taking footprint, which was over 6,000 square feet already. And if I was buying that historic house, I might want to add to it too, in the back. You know, like we shouldn't preclude that this 2-acre site wouldn't want further development after whoever would buy lot 1, that they would also want some development.
Well, frankly.
To make it more complicated.
Well, look, if I own,
You know, why not try to make it more complicated than it already is?
if
okay?
I own a 4,500 square footprint house, and the guy next door to me is building a house with a footprint that's twice that size, you know,
Well,
size is
You
everything.
know, Manny could talk about this more than I could, but one of the things I've seen in is doing certificate of appropriateness, people, to make houses more relevant, because this house is an extremely old house. And what the modern buyer wants something different, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Manny, but a lot of times they'll encourage, if you're gonna do the additions on the back of the house, because it preserves the historical front elevation, and which is the most important of all the elevations. So when they come and they say, try to improve an historical home, but do it in the back of the house. And you've built your great room or your kitchen that everybody wants, the big white kitchen everybody wants. You could do that on the back of the house, and that would then preserve the house and also make the house more relevant going forward, so it matches modern living styles. And that's what I've seen in historical preservation.
Any additional questions for the applicant or staff? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Seeing none. All right, so I guess there's a few things for us to kind of settle on. One, do we want to approve things or not approve things? And if we do want to approve things, do we want to take into consideration any of the amendments or conditions, thank you, that the HPC recommended? So opening it up for conversation from you guys on thoughts.
I mean, I guess I'll start. I'm not against, the approval in theory. I was concerned with two issues. One was, looking at the HPC conditions of the 80-foot setback, which I think that's unreasonable, to be honest. And then the driveway. Understanding a little bit more color on, why the driveway won't work. I mean, I have a shared driveway with 2 other houses. I understand it's hard. Wish there was a way to make it work, but I understand that's a little bit unreasonable. But, going to the 80-foot setback, which again, that's unreasonable, but I was hoping there'd be more of a happy medium there, because again, that was their intent was, 80, 100 foot, again, that's not gonna work, but I think the intent was they wanna see more open space there and more distance so that the new house, whether it's 9,000 or 10,000 or 12,000, isn't sitting right on top of the field house. And the field house would then be in its shadow. So, while I understand the driveway and I kind of put that aside, I'm like, okay, I'd approve it with the new driveway. they already said they'll approve the other two conditions, but the one that I'm struggling on is the setback. And I understand 12-foot is what's allowed in that zoning district, but HPC gave us an approval with certain conditions, with very close margin of approval, and it was clear that they wanted to see a much wider, setback between properties there, between the two structures. So that's really the only place I'm struggling on, to be honest.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Because I think there was, maybe I am getting confused with what the material said, but I thought that the HPC unanimously, I'm thinking defied, but that's not the right word. Denied, thank you. Recommended denial, and that they said these conditions, if it
gets approved with those conditions.
That's what they
right.
said.
Okay.
Right. That is
Those are the conditions they wanted to see if approved,
If
right?
approved, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
That's the part I'm struggling with. I feel like, I always think of it like traffic studies, right? I don't know how to do traffic studies. I rely on people that know these things. And I don't know that, if I were looking at what the HPC was looking at, I would come to the same conclusion, but I'm also not on the HPC, I'm on the PDC. And they overwhelmingly recommended denial. And so I'm trying to be understanding of that.
Right, it's hard to approve it with only 2 of their 4 conditions being met. Right.
I kind of have a different thought process on this. And I've been giving it a lot of thought since we last met. Part of it, it stems from, as a jumping off point, the fact that both of these lots are going to still be landmark properties, and they're going to have to come to the Historic Preservation Commission to obtain a certificate of appropriateness to build something on Lot 2. That gives me a certain amount of comfort. Because and that's why I asked the question originally in the hearing, could a current owner build on that property? And the answer is, might be tough, but there's a process for them to do that, to build a second residence on that property, even though it's not zoned for that. That's what we're here for. That's what the Zoning Board of Appeals is there for, which David and I know only too well. So that gives me a certain level of comfort. I understand, as David said, I've never shared a driveway. I mean, I plow my neighbor's driveway, but it's his, not mine. And I don't think I'd want to do that. The preservation of the fence and gate posts and trees, and all that stuff, the applicant is willing to go along with. I know height might be an issue. I would frankly support that. And we all know how height is measured. It's kind of goofy. But I wouldn't want a second residence on Lot 2 to tower over the field house. I would want those to be pretty close to the same, if not the same. I don't know what that means in terms of measuring, because as I said, we have kind of a convoluted way of doing that. But all in all, I'm not opposed to this application with some of those conditions, because I think not that we should necessarily take into account that taxes on this property is incredibly ridiculous. Well, it's high. Let's not put it as ridiculous. That's an unfair characterization. It's a lot of money. And frankly, even if you own one of these lots, it's going to be a lot of money. This is not inexpensive property. We should thank God we have these properties in Highland Park so they can support the schools, and the rest of us don't have to. But I'm in all seriousness, I'm comforted by the fact that the landmark designation stays with it, that the Historic Preservation Commission is going to have an opportunity to weigh in on whatever gets built on proposed Lot 2. And with certain conditions, the thing I've been struggling with, frankly, aside from the height aspect of it, because I don't think it should be higher than the field house, is the side yard setback. We've dealt with those many, many times. The current property has got a 20-yard setback from the porch, not the house, from the porch, which is fine, to the property line. So I would be comfortable, frankly, with, if we're, the FAR is gonna be another thing, but if we're talking about height, maintaining height, I would be comfortable with a 20-yard, a 20-foot setback throughout. Not, I wouldn't jog it down. I mean, I understand what the applicant's asking. I'm not so sure I'm good with that. I think 20 feet on each side of the property line makes sense. It's a little bit more than what the zoning code requires. But this is a property that's a little bit different than what the zoning code envisions. So that being said, I would probably, with those conditions, I'd probably be in favor of approving this application.
Mr. Chair, I just want to draw the commission's attention to the standard that is relevant to this particular conversation. You have other standards that must be met, of course, for the plan development, but related to the historic preservation aspect of things. Just wanted to remind the commission of that.
Thank you. So I'm looking at bless you, the plat on my computer, and I'm looking at the side yard setback where it states on lot 1, 20 feet from the property line on the west side. But visually, when I'm looking at it, the 20-foot yard setback from lot 1 to lot 2 looks visually different and smaller. Like if you look at the amount of space between the property line and the setback from that to lot 2, and then go down to lot 1, at least on my computer, that setback looks, I mean, smaller, crazy, but it looks smaller.
You're saying on the west side to the east side?
Yeah, this says 20 feet, and then that says 20 feet, but like, looking at this, it's like a third of the way longer. So I'm troubled if that is, like, that, because looking at it just looks like it's either misstated or misdrawn.
I think it looks about the same.
It really doesn't.
Is that?
Like, look here, see, like this is like the width of my finger, and this is like half my finger. I mean, it's not science, but.
That's where the setback goes to.
But it looks.
scale.
For which packet page are you on?
I'm on the plat of subdivision, attachment 1.
So he's saying if you go to the west side of the property, the side yard setback on the west side of the property looks like it is greater
Yeah.
than the side yard setback on the east side of the property.
And so I know you guys are saying, hey, we have a 20-foot setback on this side, but just the way it visually is represented to my eye, it looks at a different scale. And so I don't know if it's just drawn oddly or.
Are you referring to this page?
Yeah, I'm referring to this page. If you take the cursor to the left, you'll see the property line between lot 1 and lot 2 and the distance to the 20-foot setback. And if you look at like just visually the amount of space that takes up to what claims to be a 20-foot
Well,
setback.
bring it back down, Carl, because
Yeah,
you're at the
down,
12
yeah,
foot.
right? From there to there, that's supposed to be 20 feet. But then if you go down to the west side of the property of lot 1, it is a 20-foot setback. And just visually, it looks like a different amount of distance from my eye.
Yeah.
Where's the setback from? Where's the?
I see what you're
measuring it
saying,
from?
Chair. I don't know, I mean, I guess, I see that this dimension here is listed as being 34.4 feet,
It doesn't show a measurement there.
but then this is shown as 20 feet.
That's weird.
Was it?
We'll take note and measure that.
Patrick, what is, right where the
Not an optical
cursor
illusion,
is?
it's definitely a little bit
If
big.
you, if you come
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
south a little bit,
Um,
is that the carport there? Right there?
Yes.
Yes, that's carport.
So is that where they measure, are they measuring the setback from there to the property line, or where? Because that doesn't look like it, I think the chair is correct.
That's the other side of that. That's 69.14 feet to the property line.
To the property line.
From the home.
Right, but that's setback line.
But where is
But
it
this,
from
what's the
the
setback
carport?
line? Because the applicant's representing that we have a 20-foot setback line over here, so a 20-foot setback line is okay on this side, but visually, it doesn't look like a 20-foot setback. And so I just want to know, like,
What is it?
what is it in reality? Yeah, of course.
So are you saying, it's just so I'm clear, is the 20-foot from the screen porch to the lot line and then the 20 feet to the proposed setback? Is that your?
No, I'm saying the 20-foot from the lot line of lot 1 and lot 2.
Over here?
On the far right side.
Oh, yeah.
To the setback is stated as 20 feet.
Is the 20 feet right here?
And then is that 20 feet from the west property line to the, where it states 20-foot setback side yard on the west side
I
of?
see what you're saying. I would just say, I mean, you know, this is signed by a surveyor. I mean, so if he misdrew it, I mean, we could verify those numbers.
It doesn't look like he has a number, Cal, from, let's say, the carport or somewhere around there to the lot line.
No, he doesn't, but he has the 20, I think you're talking about the 20 side yard setback right there.
Yeah. Right.
It appears larger.
Correct.
The 20 yard on this side than the 20 yards on the other side.
Correct.
That's what you're saying. And it may be just a mistake by the drawing. Surveyor, we could verify the numbers, we could say that's the intent, and we could do that with surveyor. He signed this, so, you know, I'm assuming that,
I think that's just showing what a 20-foot setback would be. It's not saying that's how far the house is from.
no, he's talking about this, the proposed 20 feet here.
I'm just saying that what is represented as 20 feet
Yeah,
and what
it
is
looks
represented
different.
as 20 feet.
We'll do.
Completely different in scale.
What
And
we'll
so-
do is we'll verify that with the surveyor.
Yeah.
That's, the intent is that, we're not building on that side anyway, so.
No, I understand that, but like, I'm looking at this proportionally
Yeah.
of what the setback should be. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about what the effect of a new property,
Yeah.
a new home on property, potential lot 2 would be, and if I'm comfortable with the 20-foot setback. And so I'm just trying to understand if you guys are misrepresenting intentionally, unintentionally, the setback on the west side of the lot to then say, hey, we have 20 feet over here, we have 20 feet over here, but it's really 35 feet, so that we don't push you guys for a larger
I didn't
setback.
draw this drawing. I don't know what's going on the left side of the diagram.
Yes.
The east, but having drawn or involved on the other side, these two things are the same and those are 20 feet.
Correct, but I'm just saying, like, you have that setback on the west side, and people
Yeah,
looking at the
yeah.
proportionality of the setback.
Here's my
I
suggestion.
have a hunch it's mislabeled or misdrawn, but the other side is accurate, which is what we're talking about.
Correct, but I'm just trying to understand the proportionality and like what is.
If I was a betting man, I would bet that that's a 35, go back to.
Sorry, I keep I'm trying to, sorry, Zoom.
I'm sorry, I was worried there, Carl.
It's very touchy, sorry.
If I was a betting man, okay, if you look up to the one-story residence, that's 34.4 feet. And then you look and there's a little area there, I'm guessing that should have been 35 feet instead of 20 feet.
30 foot. Yeah.
I'm not sure that it makes a difference, though.
Well,
Frankly, I understand what you're saying, Chair.
Yeah.
But if we're talking on the east side, it's unmistakably 20 feet from the porch to the proposed property line.
Correct.
And then it's unmistakably 20, whether it's measured right or not, it's supposed to be 20 feet from the proposed property line to a buildable lot. The west side of proposed lot 1 would be equivalent to the east side of proposed lot 2, what's facing. Not,
Here's my suggestion, is that we'll go back and verify with the surveyor, we look at it. I think Commissioner Henry is correct. I mean, the relevant is the 20 feet and 20 feet on the east, on the west side and the east side and the west side of between the two homes. We'll verify the numbers, because we're not looking to do anything in that area, so we'll verify that that's correct. We'll talk to the surveyor. There was nothing intentional, obviously, and we want to make sure the surveyor didn't make an error on that.
I scaled this on my PDF, which I have a more advanced version than what's available on here. And there's a scale on the bottom of this. Right here, these are drawn, labeled, and scaled correctly. This one is probably mislabeled. It should probably say 30 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a good catch. While I have a microphone, I'm going to address Commissioner Henry's position about the height. We talked about this last time. The property slopes from west to east, and then if the new lot's created, as you know, height is defined, is defined by the four corners of the building envelope. So the actual building, the height will be actually lower on the new lot because the lot's sloped there. So it's, even though the existing house, I believe, we heard last time was 30 feet. If I was a betting man, again, we haven't done the calculations yet because you need a topo survey of the new lot. But I would guess would be, there's a significant grade change that anything, even based on the existing zoning district, will have to be lower than the existing house just because the property sloped.
To your point, Mr. Bernstein, the point I was trying to make was understanding that it slopes west to east. Whether it's the same height, the absolute same height, or the height of a proposed new house would be no higher than the current house, even though it might be taller because it's lower.
Yes.
I get that. That's what I was trying, the point I was trying to make. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I'm not troubled by that. The only thing I would not like to see, and I would like us to put in there, is that the height, the site height is the same, if that makes any sense.
It's a little confusing, as heights could be measured differently on the two lots.
Understood.
Because of the grade change.
And this commission understands that only
Okay.
too well, because we've dealt with it on numerous occasions.
Okay, great, thank you.
Altitude.
Altitude, there you go.
The barometric altitude.
I would just refer to that as local height as opposed to the average grade height from which the zoning code requires the measurement.
Fair
right?
enough.
So, you mean when you stand out in front of the door, you
should look the
look
same.
up, how high is it?
Right. Put a string from one house to the other.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
So here's my take on this, sorry to digress on a diatribe on setbacks. My point of view on this is, like, I'm generally okay with splitting up the lots. I drove by the site, it's insanely huge. It'd be fun to play football in that field, but, and I think it would, over time, I think it would be fine fitting in. My personal preference would be to have a 30-foot setback between the properties to give them both breathing room between the properties and not have one overshadow the other, and have that 30-foot setback go all the way back and not stagger. Additionally, I would, I'd want them to come back whenever a house is proposed. Again, this is all conceptual and trying to figure out where things are and how they would affect the others. And then the other thing my brain went to is, would the applicant be open to, and if you guys are open to it as well, recreating the entryway and the new driveway so it mirror what was there existing with the ornamental entryway with the new, and have it, because it was built for the intent of that property. And so to replicate it in some form or fashion, and the new driveway, which isn't really shown on the plat, that's kind of where my brain is at. I have no issue with the front setback. Yeah.
I'll go unless they want to respond to you on your question. Okay. I am really concerned about the HPC vote 7-0. And I agree with Commissioner Mantis that I don't know historic preservation, and I would trust people who do know a bit about it to look at all the facts and deliberate. And I'm worried about the fact that they had big concerns about this property. And I think that even if they do have big concerns and they put these, considerations forward, including the 80-foot setback, which is a big setback, to come back with a 20-foot setback is still, to me, like not in good faith. This is a special property. It has an estate feel. It has documented all of these like site conditions that make it special. And to come back with a 20-foot is like surely you can build a building with more than a 20-foot setback on that property. It's gigantic. And so that to me just like kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I think for the footprint and the height, those are things that we could talk about and get to like a decent place with, even if it is building back on the lot more, so it's not so much impacting the view from the street. But I just don't feel good about the way that the setback's currently being discussed. I think at least 40 feet would be my preference for the setback. And I think that's pretty much what my thoughts are.
Just a real quick question for staff as well. If we were to ask for a larger setback, and if this has to come back to us anyway, could we then back off of that setback at a future meeting, or is this, how set in stone is that?
It's going to be an ordinance that gets adopted, and there'll be conditions and setbacks established, but that could be changed if the applicant came back and requested that it be changed. You could consider changing it as part of a PUD amendment. But it would be, barring a PUD amendment, that would be the setback, right?
But it would need a PUD amendment no matter what if they're going to propose a home.
That's correct.
So then I would tend to agree with Commissioner Incheck in terms of going a little bit more restrictive in terms of a setback, giving ourselves, calling it what it is, some negotiating leverage for whatever the house is ultimately going to look like, or be in terms of size and scope. So that's my thought to get comfortable with this.
No, it's tricky without seeing a footprint of a house on there.
Yeah, agreed.
Commissioner Henry and I have reviewed hundreds of side yard setbacks on ZBA, but there's always a footprint. We always had something to reference with. Maybe it's helpful if they come back with a footprint of a house and we could see it at 20 feet, at 30 feet, and then 20 feet may be completely reasonable, right? But it's hard to see without a reference point. That's where again, 20 feet may work, but it's hard to see. You have a huge lot and a huge, buildable area. So there's really no reference point.
I would also love to see some, it doesn't have to be a photo rendering or anything, but some contextual pictures of what that might look like with homes that are that size, that are 40 feet away from each other, just so we can kind of visualize in a better way what that would mean. I think that would be really helpful and not too hard to find.
So we want to continue?
Before I just want to address the recommendation from the HPC. I would note that we have two former chairmen of the HPC are supporting the subdivision. So even though there was unanimous against, recommending that the subdivision, two former members, including Danny Kahn, who was, I believe, the chairman for about 10 years. He wrote a letter unsolicited to us. I was surprised to see it today, and when he sent us in support, thinking that it was a good compromise. So it's not the historical preservation community is not uniformly against it, because we do have former chairman of the commission who were supporting this. So give me a second to talk to the client, and I'll be right back. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I just want to just make mention that notwithstanding what was just said, the commission as appointed is the body that's advising you. The testimony of others are important, and you take testimony, both written and oral testimony. Oral testimony is under oath, written testimony isn't. That's the information you're getting from different stakeholders and people involved.
You didn't know you signed up for this, did
Good training for me in 2 years when I could move over. When they do 6 in the morning, I'm way more alert. Six to 9 call.
It would be in the PUD, if it goes that way. Correct, possible.
Well, that's what, it's always aggravating when they're not, for whatever reason, aren't sharing with us exactly what they want to develop. That was the whole thing with, what's this?
Mr. Chairman? Just, I would advocate that if there's conversation, that it be in the mics and that it can be on the record. I just don't want sidebars. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
The applicant's here would like to address the board, but before we do that, I just want to make sure, for our purposes, clarify. So when you're saying you want a 40-foot or 30 or 40-foot setback, it's from the lot line, the proposed lot line. It's not between the two houses, because there's 20 feet, and then you're requesting a larger, than we're proposing 20 feet, and you want it to go larger for 30, then I heard 40 here. So, do you still want to, Greg, okay, Greg likes to talk. What we're trying to do is get a hold of the proposed buyer, because he's not here tonight, he's traveling, to see, because he's the one who's, he's envisioning the house on the property, that he could live with that. Because I would notice, if you look at the lot does, the buildable area narrows as you go towards the rear, which may handcuff them. That's the reason we went down to 12 feet pictures. So if you pull that out, Carl.
Have you been sworn in for
Yeah,
this matter?
I think he's the first, do it again.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Will you please go to the microphone, state your name for the record?
I'm Greg Moyer. I am representing and I'm partners with the owner of the house, Eric Rothner. Eric hasn't lived in the house for 5 years. He and his wife, Gail, own the house together. She passed away. He hasn't been back, literally been back to the house a couple of times. We've had the house on the market, as you know, for a very long time, trying to sell it. It's very limited buyer pool for a historic landmark with a tremendous lot that has to be maintained. We found a buyer that's interested in it. I think the buyer should have given you a site plan to show you where the house should be. I requested it multiple times. I'm glad to hear that you at least drove by. We should all walk by it and see the amount of distance. There's a tremendous amount of land there. I live right around the corner. I've lived around the corner. I've lived in Highland Park since 1969. I lived on Park Avenue. I live now on Hawthorne Lane. And I know the property extremely well. You won't see the new house after the setback from the street. You will almost not even see it as you're driving down Central Avenue, even with exactly putting it up all the way to the setback to the the east-west setback, so now we're talking about setback between the two houses. The amount of setback is, you having 20 feet and 20 feet between the houses is a lot of setback. He's not gonna build the house to that property line. He's gonna build the house, he's not, maybe something's gonna go to 20 feet, but it's not gonna be at that line. That being said, he may not buy the lot. So we're sitting here talking about this, and, we may build it ourselves, we may find another buyer for the house, Mr. Fettner might buy the house, I don't know who's gonna buy the lot. But we have to be able to build something that's reasonable. We can't maintain this house. It's not maintained, it's not feasible, it's not saleable. We can't maintain an $81,000 tax bill not living there. I didn't know the taxes were that much, I got my tax bill too, I'm sure you guys all loved your tax bills you just got. So something has to happen. Is it reasonable? Sure. I really believe that the buyer should have had a site plan for you to look at. But we want to, the buyer's also very local, he knows most of you, I'm sure. They want to put a reasonable house on the property. They're not going to build a monstrosity of a house. The setback, I think, is reasonable the way it's requested. The zoning says 12, we went to 20. 80 makes the lot, frankly, unbuildable. You would have to have a sideways house put there. I wanted to clarify that the 20 feet from the porch to the proposed lot line is okay. I'm fine at 30 feet. I can't say I'm gonna want you to approve 40, because I don't even know what I have there. I'd rather, take a look at it, but at 30, we're fine. I don't even understand why that jog is there that is on the survey, we're narrowed down. I don't know, the architect said something about the lot narrowing. I don't think it really has that much. Okay, I can't imagine, you're not putting a house back there, so I don't think it makes a difference. So if you wanted to go 30 feet all the way back, I think it's probably fine. So anyway, thanks for your time. You guys have a lot of time into this thing. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate the time of HPC. I get their point, but the house is land. They're taking care of the house. We're treating it as a landmark. It's going to continue to be a landmark. If you look at the driveway, that driveway, I could promise you that driveway wasn't there when that house was built, the way it is. It only makes sense to put another driveway with the porte cochere to maintain it and maintain the integrity. Mr. Furman is going to design a house that's going to be significant, appropriate, and a driveway that's appropriate for what's there. So I'm asking that you guys approve this lot split. 30 feet is fine, we'll make it work, and that's what I'm asking. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One thing I forgot to mention tonight is that, and Greg just brought this up, is that when I went up looked up the taxes today, I just wanted to see, I went to check the exemptions. If you notice, if you have your tax bill, you have a homestead exemption if you live in the property. The last time the homestead exemption was taken on this property was 2022, and the last time the senior exemption was taken was the same year. So basically, no one's been living in that house since 2022, because otherwise they'd be taking the homestead exemption. And so one of the things is right now, there's one surviving spouse who's very elderly, not living in the house. And we talked about this last time, is that what happens if nothing gets done here? We don't want to go down that road, because if it's unmarketable, and even at $100,000, if someone doesn't want to carry such a large property for over $100,000 a year in carrying costs, it makes it really problematic. So as Danny Kahn mentioned, we're trying to come up with a compromise that works with everybody. So let me talk and see what the buyer said. Okay, so the applicant is okay with a 30-foot side yard setback all the way back, and we'd like to proceed hopefully on that. And what we would do is that if the findings of fact, you can make that as a condition, and then we'll update this before the proposed plat before we get to council.
Thank you. Any other deliberation, conversation?
I'm a lot more comfortable approving it with 30, so I'm fine with it. Yeah.
Pinch the mic.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
If you remember on that survey, which I think the surveyor is horrible, by the way, and by the way, that was after the 2 revisions, and we can never find the guy. This was the original surveyor for the house. I don't know how this happened. So you're gonna get a new survey from a different surveyor, but we will get that. I didn't even understand what the 20-foot thing was on that west side. That was ridiculous. that needs that jog. That jog needs, where the jog that they said, they had it with 20, I think, going down to 10.
12, yeah.
12. And Jim explained to me why that's needed, because, there's gonna be the way they're kind of laying out a house that they haven't laid out yet is the way the lot slants, you can see over here too, back here. You see how this angles back, right? You see right over there, so this is the bluff and stuff, so it's just the way, this becomes like, there's gonna be some house that needs to go back that way. So I said 30 feet's fine, if you could do 30 feet and narrow it down to 25 feet or 20 feet would be very helpful in that spot.
So it seems that there at least have been some renderings or some sketches of a
I've seen nothing.
sketch or something on a cocktail napkin. Is there like anything that there could be shared that will provide context of the potential buyer's vision? Because it will make it a lot easier for us to approve or not approve things, just to have some sort of context of what this proposed buyer would like to see.
The buyer's not here, so
Sure,
I
and
can't
it
promise.
also,
but-
the more information you have about that, and also spare folks coming back potentially. Right,
Correct.
for an amendment. So I just point that out.
Yeah, I can, the idea is to get it further back. So when when you're pushing this side yard all the way back in the back, it causes us to want to get back, to lose space trying to arrange a house further back. But the intent is to push the house further back. And I'm not promising anything, but that's the idea. We don't want to be up against this other house, but we also don't want to be restricted by regulations that way exceed what's normal. And it already exceeds that. And because where the property line was drawn in the first place exceeded what they needed, what they could have done with lot one, for example. So the intent is to stay away from it. I mean, that is the intent.
No, I understand the intent, but do you have like anything that you can tangibly show us as a body of like what your potential client has like envisioned or seen or thought, or like, because you said they're fine with a 30-yard setback and they have a vision, like is there anything, again, that would help us understand contextually how this would sit on the site as a planned development? Because you guys will have to come back to us regardless to share, and I think it would be easier and quicker for us to approve or not approve this, just with additional context.
Well, not that I could share without the client's consent, but it's, other than what I just said. So, is there anything, I mean, in terms of, I think there's a lot of things that aren't being taken into consideration also, which is also what the landscape there actually is in terms of, there's some mature trees right up against this porch and amazing trees right in front of the house, of course. But one of those is a heritage tree and nobody can touch that. So that's regulated too. And another magnificent tree next to it. I think I took some photographs, which was very interesting, and I'm just going to share it of the whole property before spring came. And it's really interesting because the house is well protected by vegetation in its immediate surrounding, and I think that should be considered also. And it's interesting how little you can see the house, even with no leaves on the trees. That's how dense things are right around that porch. And it's quite beautiful, of course, but it's something to think about too.
Thank you. All right, so what do you guys want to do?
Well, they seem, at least for the part where the hypothetical residence is going to be, they'd be amenable to a 30-foot setback. Then what I'm hearing is that where the JAG shows it going back to 12, they'd be amenable to 20. Unless I'm putting words in their mouth.
I heard 25.
Okay,
I just don't have to come back.
I heard.
I mean, if he really needs it, I'm gonna,
I mean, you're gonna have to come back anyways, but
you know, I don't wanna have to negotiate that line, you know, so if he's saying, you know, 25, figure it out.
So this is a question for staff, assuming we can agree to a revised side yard setback on the west side for lot 2, would we need to come back, or could they do that as a condition?
Depends on how you want to frame your recommendation. You could say that that be revised to show a setback of a particular distance, and then that would need to be submitted before it goes to city council, and staff would verify that that happened.
The only reason I bring that up is because the city council is meeting on May 26th, and they don't meet again for over a month after May 26th. They only have one meeting in June, which is June 29th. So if this gets pushed, if there's any way we can avoid pushing this back, because then we're 2 months out from where we are right now. So I'm trying to avoid that. Again, if they had 2 meetings in June, I'd be less concerned, but with only one meeting, and that meeting's actually the 5th week instead of even the 4th week, it pushes the whole thing way back. I'm asking for them to make as a condition so we can move forward, and not have to come back.
I gave him the setbacks, that's the condition.
Yeah, so,
Done, sign it up, it'll be done.
I'm sorry?
I'm done. It's fine, we'll get it done, we'll come back, go to city council. I'm sorry, I'm done. It doesn't matter what it says. Okay. It's not his lot. Okay.
Okay, so we're proposing, I'm gonna make an executive decision. We'll propose 30 feet instead of the 20 feet area, and with the 12 feet areas, we would request 25 feet. Okay? And we can make that as a condition, so keep the ball rolling. Otherwise, we won't be city council till the June 29th.
And has the commission made a decision on the driveway? The driveway condition?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with, I understand how hard it is to have a shared driveway.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
I'm okay with that too.
We understand what that'll do to the,
okay.
I don't know. I feel like there's a way to do it where like you're partially sharing it and partially having individual. But I guess that's neither here nor there if you have 4 people saying they're fine with it.
Mr. Chair.
You need to either, if you're gonna speak, you need to come to the mic, otherwise I'm gonna gavel, and I don't know what the ramifications for me
We have
gambling
every
is.
intent to maintain that fence, turn the fence inward. If you want the posts to match, I'm not sure we can make that work. I'm totally fine with creating 2 posts on the other driveway. I don't know, it might look goofy. It's kind of hard to comment on that. You understand what somebody
You're
asked for?
talking about if you added another driveway, you would.
Yeah, to put the other the curved driveway, it's almost really unworkable, the way the driveway is set to try to service both houses. But if we created another driveway, it's straight in, and you could do the double pillars, I don't know what else to call them.
Monuments.
That were really not they were not historical anyway, that maybe recreate the pineapples on top if we had to. But you could turn the fence, which I also challenge the dating of the fence, but leave it alone, turn that in, because we don't want to get rid of the fence, to create that. I think that would be fine. So, just kind of my comment, if that helps you.
Thank you. All right, so it sounds like we have, can you bring up the conditions, please? Thank you.
Can I ask a question while that's happening?
Yeah, please.
This is for maybe Corporation Council. I'm wondering how many votes we need in affirmative for something to pass with 5 people.
So you need a majority of those present here. You need 3, not affirmative, but concurrent. Hopefully we won't have to get into the nitty gritty of what that actually means. But so long as,
Concurring in the result, but not in the decision?
well, even, all of your votes must count. I'll just say that. And if we need to add a couple minutes to your training this year, we'll do that too.
Let's not do that either.
I oppose that.
Yes, at least 3 votes.
Thank you.
That's a good question. I mean, for the zoning board, you sometimes have to have a certain number
Here too,
regardless.
I think it's a special exception.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah.
So we have 2 things to vote on. One is the plat of re-subdivision, and then one is the PUD, correct?
That's correct.
And Chair, you can do it how you usually do it. Vote to adopt the findings of fact. The findings of fact vote to adopt the findings of fact that takes care of both the plat of subdivision as well as the PUD. And then which of the HPC conditions, if any, you wish to adopt.
Yep.
One other thing, though, I just threw you, Mr. Chairman, to Corp Counsel. So if you have the zoning matter, that's the PUD, and you have the subdivision. Now, the subdivision is going to have this line, the subdivision building line, that will be that setback. Is it advisable to include in that recommendation that there be some mention of that as a condition in the PUD also? Or is it sufficient just to have the building line reflected in the subdivision without mention in the PUD? That would be my question.
Well, I would hope those two would be consistent. My thought is that the condition would say a setback of 30 feet and then 25 feet toward the rear of the property, and that would be reflected as well on the plat of subdivision when it comes back before council.
Okay, so in both places, yep. I just wanted to be clear.
So, and then someone correct me if I get this wrong. So could I get a motion to approve the findings of facts for PD 2025-00081 with the conditions that the gate post fence,
These were for consideration.
thank you.
Yeah, that the commission, the ones that I've heard thus far, and the commission can discuss them, I've heard variously. So I've heard the 30-foot setback and then jogging back to 25. And then I've also heard there was also a comment on height, that the proposed home can't be higher than the existing home,
Yeah,
just as.
Director Fontaine had a term for that.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say regular.
Local height.
So with the conditions that the western boundary, the western setback of Lot 2 would be 30 feet, and then past the house, 25 feet, and the height, the maximum height on Lot 2 would not exceed the local height?
Well, there's two things. If you want the height to be the exact same height as the building next to it is one thing. If you want the height of this building to match the height of the other building, that's a different thing. So the local height would be right in front of the door, looking up. If it's 30 feet on the Cornelius Fieldhouse, then it would be 30 feet here. Now, the land drops away, so that would be like this. If you're saying, if that's what you want, so that the height of this building and the height of this building are the same, that's one thing. If you want them to be aligned, that's different. This building would be taller because it's set down, right? And so the height maximum in this zoning district is 32 feet, or is it 30 feet? 32.
What's the existing
So they
height of the
cannot go any higher than 32, okay? And so I don't know the height of the existing home. I don't know if anyone on staff knows the height of the existing home at this
30
point.
feet.
30 feet.
They say 30 feet.
So just one condition, or do we want a condition on the height?
Can we bring up the other HPC recommendations?
Well, we resolved the side yard.
Correct.
That's one.
Talked about height.
Two, I thought that we were talking about not, they're both 30 feet, but one not exceed I don't know, how'd you put it, Joel?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah. So the height of the actual structure from local grade, right in front of the front door to the top, that's one thing. So the
Right.
Cornelius house could be 30 feet, then this would be 30 feet. But given that the land drops away, it
Right.
would actually be like
Correct.
this, right? But that's the same size, that's the same height house in that
Right.
way, to look at it that way, right?
And I don't think that's how we're
But
looking
you're
at
saying
it.
it can't be any higher,
Like the altitude.
it can't go past being aligned with the height, the plane that is the
Correct.
height.
Correct, can't exceed that.
The plane of the height plane of the Cornelius Field House, it can't exceed that. Provided it meets zoning, meaning the 32 feet, because I don't know what the Cornelius has, like, whichever is more restrictive or, yeah. Because otherwise you're granting potential relief. I just don't know the height of that home. So to advise you on that.
So how do I word this?
So which is it? Would you want to bound that by the overall limitations to height in the zoning districts?
I would, well, do that, but that means it may be shorter.
It could
may
be.
appear to be shorter because it's a sloping property.
Could be.
So
I mean, they're gonna have to come back for a PUD anyways for the house, so for whatever reason, they need the extra 3 feet or whatever it is.
well, then we don't have to address it at all. It'd be
Yeah,
stuck, they'll
yeah.
be stuck with the ordinance.
That's
Unless they
correct.
come back.
I'm
So
fine with that.
We don't have to address the height.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest way to deal with it, I suppose, right now.
The ordinance doesn't give reference, though, to the height of the Cornelius.
Right,
You
right.
understand that. The ordinance will use a measurement that is the average grade of the property in question. So
Right.
it will not consider that. Okay, I just
Right.
wanted to be clear
And
about
if they
that.
want something different, they'll have to come back here and talk to us, I guess.
But this was saying that it would not exceed the height of the Cornelius Field House, which could be implied in two ways. The actual height like this or the lining like that, right? So that's why I point that out.
No, and I totally understand what you're saying, and
The zoning does not consider that.
the zoning
all.
does not consider that.
No, would not consider the height of the house next door.
So what do we want to do on height? What do we want to propose on height? Just leave it to the ordinance, and if they want something different, they come back?
The intent of this, if I may, Mr. Chair, was not to grant more height for the proposed Lot 2. I can feel pretty confident with that, and
So,
Maddie,
then-
please correct me if I'm wrong.
Then what I would propose that the structure on lot 2 would not exceed draw a line in between the two roofs, line across the house. Whatever the hell that's called.
And provided that it meets the zoning code, whichever is more restrictive.
More restrictive,
Okay,
yes.
I think that's probably what you want to say.
Is it,
Okay. I think that's clear.
yeah, is that clear?
Right, so it has to, it can't exceed either the zoning height or.
It cannot exceed the zoning height or the drawstring across the roof,
Like a plane.
Plane of the height.
The relative height.
whichever is more restrictive.
Yeah, whichever's more restrictive.
And then
Okay.
a
That
30-foot
addresses that.
setback, side yard setback to 25 feet past that field house
Yep, so 30 feet.
on the western side yard
Right, so they
setback.
currently have 20 feet.
They have current 20 to 12.
Now it will be
We're
going to
bumping it
30.
30 to 25.
And where they have 12, it would go to 25.
Yeah, because we have an exhibit, so that's what the revision would be. Just
Correct.
like using that exhibit, if you're okay with where it jogs in that exhibit, it would be changed then to those numbers.
And
38.
provided they use a different surveyor.
They're gonna provide a different land surveyor. Well, that's a question. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so then that is something that you want, okay, that'll be in there, and well, that is problematic because you're making a decision based on the survey, so I just point that out. If there's some question about the survey accuracy, it definitely needs to be
Redone.
definitely needs to be cleaned up before city council.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's adequate for your decision-making here tonight is your decision.
I think that would be adequate for my decision-making if they get a new survey.
Okay. All right, well, then we'll make sure we get that before the city council deliberation on it.
So we're on it, we're trying to get to this May 26th.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm gonna get that survey by May 26th.
Okay.
We all know what the intention of that survey is. This surveyor took weeks to get this. We're sitting here at May 5th. I mean, it's very unlikely that I'm gonna get a survey. Maybe I could get it on May 25th. When's the date, 26th?
Yeah, but we would need the survey, you know, sooner than that for the packet for the city council, which I'm sure they
Right,
would
so
want
you
that
want it,
before
you
the
know,
meeting.
4 or 5 days ahead of time. That's
Right.
probably pretty unlikely. And pushing this to June 29th, whether or not we make it's very, very cumbersome. Because he has, it's going to have to get resurveyed ultimately when we go to final plat, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
We certainly want to make sure that's accurate. And so what I would say is, just through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant is, I don't know that the council will feel very good about that, on the 26th.
Right.
So I just point that out. They might just say, well, then we're going to continue this. So
Right.
And Chair,
I
if I
just
may.
point that out.
So and it's not really your problem, what the city council is going to be considering is whether to approve a plat of subdivision. And that plat of subdivision is going to be what's before them. If it's, and this is what Joel, I think, was alluding to, if it's something that is not accurate, then the question remains, how do we approve something that we can't see? You don't have that issue. You can say, we approve, or we recommend this for approval with these understandings. All I'm saying is, once it gets before city council, they're going to have to decide whether they want to approve something that's not before them.
Okay. Works for me.
One other thing about the setbacks, so that you talked about the west, the common property line between the two parcels, but the front yard, there's a desire to have that be what's shown as well, to align that
Assuming that
that setback
the
line.
setback would
Match the setback.
mirror the existing setback of the field house.
Just want to make sure that that's
Yes,
stated
yes.
in the motion.
I will try to pull a rabbit out of my hat and try to get this surveyor to update it and to make sure it's verified. He's signing it under oath, and his license is on the line with this, so I will work on that. With my goal is to have a revised plan of subdivision to the city at least 5 days before the city council, so this would not be an issue. And let me try.
Okay.
That would be preferred, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'm, all right, so then,
Can I help with the
Please.
motion?
Help us out, Marcus.
Motion to adopt the findings of fact with the conditions that there be a 30-yard side setback.
30 feet.
I'm sorry, 30-foot side yard setback.
30 yards, I go to 80 feet.
And then a 25-foot side yard setback toward the rear of the property. Preservation of the gate post, wrought iron fence, and heritage trees. Any new structure on the proposed vacant lot cannot exceed the relative height of the Cornelius Field or the underlying zoning requirements for height, whichever is more restrictive. And then prohibit additional zoning relief related to the proposed vacant lot.
I'll make that motion as stated by the Corporation Council.
Can I?
So second.
All right. No, this is not a voice vote.
Roll call.
Roll call, please. Thank you.
Okay. It was motioned by Fettner and
Motion
seconded.
by
Motion by
Henry,
Henry,
seconded by-
seconded by Mr. Fettner.
There was just a question, yeah. Okay. Okay. Commissioner Inchite,
No.
Commissioner Fettner,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Mantis,
No.
Chair or Vice Chair, now Chair Nanis.
Yes.
The ayes have it. That's 3 votes to 2. The motion carries. This item is recommended for approval with the conditions as stated.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the understanding that there'd be
Yeah.
an attempt to get that survey completed 5 days before the meeting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I know this was not an easy one. I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is an administrative design review update. Staff?
Yes, just two, briefly. There was an administrative
design review approval for 481 Roger Williams Avenue for an awning. I believe there's already an awning on the property. They're changing colors. There's signage related with it as well, but that's a sign permit and they meant by right code for that. And then the other administrative design review update is for 59 Skokie Valley Road. Also an awning. There's already an awning there. I think it's like light blue or sky blue, and they're changing it to a darker color to actually match awnings that are already on the property. Then they're making a very minor change, hence because it's administrative. There's like 2 doors there now, and they're getting rid of 1 door, making the other door bigger, but it's all staying the same materials. Yes, those are my 2 administrative design review updates. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next meeting will be May 19th, 2026, here at City Hall at 7 PM. Any updates on that from the staff?
We have 2
Yeah, so for
significant items.
May 19th, there have been 2 items that have been noticed and signs are up. So the former Solo Cup site, 1700 Old Deerfield Road, has submitted for a amendment to their PUD. In some, well, I won't get into it. This is not.
This isn't the public hearing, so that's that, and then the next item, yep.
I was just worried for reactions. The other item is, it's unaddressed. It's 0 Patton Road. It's a vacant parcel in the town of Fort Sheridan, immediately next to, I believe it's a 9-story condo building at 3535 Patton Road. That's coming in for a 10-unit detached townhomes. Or not townhomes, 10-unit, just detached, single-family homes.
Condos or rental?
I don't know, but we were asking them that.
Are there any case briefings from the staff?
None, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Is there any business from the public? Seeing none?
Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All right, adjournment.
Aye. You gotta get the ayes.